Alrighty, as promised, it is now 12:03. I hope everyone's settled in. I just want to say welcome again. We're really excited that you're here. I'm actually going to stop sharing and I'm going to talk through a few points. We are going to be covering quite a lot today where Clora and your consulting career is concerned. So I think it's best for us to just go ahead and dive in. I'll kick us off with an introduction for myself and for our lovely co-host today, and then I'm going to run you through our agenda. So my name is Emily Villari, and I'm a customer success manager here at Clora. And my role as a CSM is to support you and your goals on the platform, as well as monitor the health of your engagement with employers when you do start matching with opportunities and working through us. And I'll go a little bit more in depth on my role as your partner later on in the webinar. Joining me today is Libby Van Buskirk, the manager of the Department of Customer Success at Clora, my boss. She will be monitoring the chat, and she'll also be monitoring the Q&A, which you can make use of to enter your questions for us, and she'll hop on at the end to guide us through our scheduled Q&A. So for now, as promised, I'm going to run you through our agenda. The very first thing I'm going to do with you is take a minute or two to introduce Clora for all of those who are new to the platform and maybe don't know too much about us. The second item on our agenda is going to see us visiting the Clora profile. I'll go over some best practices and we'll cover things like hourly rates. From there, we'll step towards item number 3, finding consulting opportunities on Clora and the application and hiring process. And the very last topic that I'll cover with you is what to expect once you've been hired. I'll break down your timesheets portal and invoicing timeline and meeting the Clora team. Now, items 2 and 3 on our agenda are going to see us on the Clora platform itself, and we'll wrap up on a couple of slides. So I'll be doing a little bit of screen hopping today, so just ask that you bear with me. And then at the end, of course, as promised, Libby will hop on with us and we'll go through your questions, which again, you can write into the Q&A section as we go along here. Okay, so let's get started. A little bit about us. Clora was founded in 2015 by our CEO, Rahul Chaturvedi, who after spending many years in the life sciences industry, both as a consultant and a full-time employee, decided to change the way hiring takes place in the industry. Clora's true north is very simple. We believe that finding the right talent should never delay bringing therapies to market and providing value to patients. And we endeavor to do that by shortening the time it takes to get consulting. And that, my friends, is our elevator pitch as promised, short and sweet. Now, I've actually got a quick question for you, if you don't mind. And if you wouldn't mind writing your answers into the chat, just the first thing that pops into your mind when I ask, what is the hardest thing about trying to find a consulting job? And Libby's gone ahead and written into the chat in case you have trouble finding it. So just go ahead and look for that little notification. It should be on the bottom left side of your screen. And I'll repeat that question for you again, because I'd love to learn what is the hardest part about finding a consultant job. Okay, so we've got some answers coming through. Getting feedback on why you're not selected for a position, getting a contract offer, work-life balance, finding the right fit where your specific expertise is applicable, what specific requirements are they looking for, customized to your needs, making companies aware that I exist. That's a very good point. Getting leads, a good match for my skills. No feedback after sending repeated info on my background, not taking the first opportunity just because you have availability, lag time between first contact and the contract, and then getting paid at a rate with the value that you bring. Okay, so this is really great insight for us. And as we go through this webinar together, you'll see me address some of these common pain points that you've submitted, and try and keep in mind our mission here. Yeah, just finding clients. So try and keep in mind our mission here, which is, in a nutshell, getting you to work faster so value can be brought to patients faster. So thank you for your participation. This has been really great. I'm going to go ahead and share some quick facts with you, things that I think are worth keeping at the forefront of your mind as we go through this webinar. So the first one is we vet employers and their consulting jobs, or as we like to call them, projects, for timeline, urgency, and most importantly, budget. Now, it's important to keep in mind that we can't predict things like loss of funding or non-approval, and unfortunately, those things do happen. But we take steps before you even know about the opportunity to ensure that projects you apply for through Clora have reliable funding. Number two, projects sourced through Clora can fill your calendar however you see fit, from 5 hours a week to 40 hours a week, from 2 months long to over a year long. When we talk about flexibility with your calendar, with your existing book of business outside of Clora, we're referring to the many varying time commitments available across projects, and I'll touch on that more as we go through. And then last but not least, you keep 100% of your hourly rate. And I'm going to leave you with that little nugget of information. I promise we're going to circle back to that in a little while. So what I'm going to do now is actually share my screen. So bear with me here. Alrighty. We go. And I do apologize. I've gone ahead and enlarged the mouse. So if it looks a little goofy, that is on purpose. I sometimes have a little bit of trouble tracking things when we screen share. So hopefully this might make things easier for those of you who share my difficulties. So this is the Clora landing page. Now this is a demo site, meaning everything you're seeing here is actually for demonstration purposes only. But at the end, like I said, I'll give you a peek at some of the live projects we're currently sourcing for. So we're going to start with your profile, and we're actually going to navigate to it in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and we're going to take a look at mine. Now, your profile is crucial to your job search on Clora. This page offers you the ability to deconstruct your resume in ways other platforms don't allow, and I'll be touching on why that's so important as we go through this page and break down what's here and where you should be putting your focus. So on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a place for you to upload your resume and your LinkedIn. And I'll highlight here that there is no auto-populating from these things onto your profile, except for what we call tag suggestions, which you can see here is indicated by these little blue wands. And of course, I'll go over those in just a minute. So after you upload your resume, you'll start by entering your bio underneath technical experience. And we recommend between 1 and 2 paragraphs in length, but go ahead and copy and paste from your resume. Beneath that, you're going to break down your experience and expertise in the form of tags. And we want you to be very precise when you set these tags. Functional areas is the most important tag on your profile. It indicates to us your area or areas of expertise. It's the very first filter Clora uses to determine if you're a good fit for a project. So for the sake of my profile, I've added clinical operations, but I've got 2 suggestions here, clinical development and data management. I'm going to nix data management, and I'm going to go ahead and apply clinical development, and you'll see it adds there. You can add up to 3 tags in this area. Now below that, this section really describes your proficiency as well as your interests. So what kind of product technologies are you capable of leveraging, but also what diseases and indications are you not only experienced working with, but would like to work with again in the future. This section here is your opportunity to tailor the types of projects that Clora keeps you in the loop about, the types of projects you're invited to review and apply. And again, this little wand will make suggestions just to make sure your tags fully represent and describe your skills and expertise. Again, we want to be really clear about what you're capable of doing. So think back to some of those things you guys wrote into the chat, addressing finding projects that are specific to your needs and skill set. This is one of the areas that we use to filter it for exactly that reason. And you can accept them and dismiss them as you see fit. Below that, we've got past roles. You will undoubtedly have more here than myself, but the functionality of adding those details is relatively straightforward. You'll add another role, and then it's kind of a plug and go format, if you will. And then back on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got language preferences, certification, education, and accomplishments. Now, if you have 10 plus years of experience, dates here under education certification don't really matter. However, I will emphasize that accomplishments is worth spending some time building out. Why? We've gotten a lot of feedback directly from employers that this section is sometimes one of the first things that they look at. Above that, we've got work preferences. So I've set myself to consulting as that's currently what we source for. Full-time employment's the longer game here. And below that, we've got hourly rate. Now, this is a general rate range for us to understand your minimums and your maximums for rates. We know and understand that your rate really depends on the work itself and your goals. And when you apply to a project, you'll actually get a chance to set a rate specific to that role. When you do negotiate with an employer, that is exactly the hourly wage you will be paid. Clora's fee is added on top of that, not subtracted. But most importantly, that fee is a fee employers are responsible for paying. Bottom line here, your take-home pay is not affected by Clora fees. As a side note, if you ever have any questions about what you think you should be setting your rate at, you can actually write into us and we can talk to you a little bit about what we're seeing for current market trends. So there's a live chat button in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. I'm going to open it up so you guys can see. You can use it to start a conversation with a real person. I promise, it might even be me. And this chat function is available across the site no matter what page you're on. So just be sure that you're logged in. Back over here, below that, I've marked myself as available to consult. If you have no more hours to bill out, just let us know by marking no. And if you are available, tell us down here how many weeks or how many hours you have to give in a week. And that just makes sure that we can keep you in mind and in the loop about the right roles that fit into your schedule. Now, you will likely have a progress bar up here, especially if you're new to Clora. We recommend adding details until that progress bar disappears or at least hits 90%. This profile you're looking at now is a good jumping off point for you. Yours should be at the very least this dense. Now, the last thing I'll cover here with you is your profile view and your public and private settings. All consultants working through Clora are blinded, meaning the employer can't see your contact details, your resume, or your name. To see what that will look like, simply click on View Public Profile up here, and you'll see that my name and my resume and even my location have been removed. And this is what the employer will see when you're submitted to a project. So back into Private View, this switch down here is a little different. Flipping this button to Public will enable employers to find your profile and invite you to apply to their open projects. Now, this is currently only available for roles in clinical operations. It's a new feature, and we're still building it out to expand the scope of projects available through it, but we recommend, if you have experience in ClinOps, to make your profile public. Now, as you continue on in your consulting career and growing out your expertise and updating your resume, it's also important to update your Clora profile as well. That way we can keep working together and bringing you projects that you're excited about. So that wraps up agenda item number 2. So we're going to move on to number 3 now. We're going to talk about finding projects. We're going to talk about how we match you to projects and how you can find projects to apply for on your own. I'm also going to walk you through the hiring process. So we'll start by navigating to opportunities up here in the menu bar. Now, when employers identify consulting needs in their pipeline, they create a project post much like this one. Let me see if I can find a more filled out one for you to look at. Here we go. Remember, this is a demo site. So they'll put together a project post like this one, outlining the necessary skills, responsibilities, logistics like timeline and travel and qualifications, all to create a very clear picture for you on Clora. Now, once that project is live on the Clora platform, like we're seeing an example of here, Clora uses matching algorithms to find consultants with relevant skills and experience. And that is done by combing through all the consultant profiles on Clora to identify relevant tags. That is why being detailed and clear about your expertise and keeping your profile up to date is crucial. This is how we match you to projects. If you are selected to apply for a project, you'll be sent an email inviting you to submit your resume and answer a few questions. This at most will take a few minutes, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But you can actively look for roles yourself, and you can do that under this opportunities page. We've got 3 tabs up here: open, upcoming, and invites. Open opportunities house all the live projects available, all of which have to tend to have ASAP or near future start dates. Upcoming house all the roles with future start dates. And then under invites, you can see those clinical operation projects employers have invited you to apply for. Full disclosure, open opportunities is typically where we've seen projects falling under. So now I'm going to walk you through the application process. So we'll open up this one again. At the bottom of this post, there are 2 buttons. If you know someone who's a good fit for this role, you can actually use our referral program to invite them to apply. And if they are matched with the project, you'll receive a $500 bonus. So just a little something to keep in the back of your mind. That person will have to have a consultant profile on Clora. So when you invite them, they will have to sign up should they decide to apply. But sign up, as you know, is free. So now we're going to click on the other button here. Oops, it actually seems I might have already put in an application for that one. So let's scroll up to this guy. We'll go to apply now. So there are two ways to find a role, right? A, by looking by yourself, or by B, having us ask you to apply for a role. Either way, you will begin here. Like I previously mentioned, this section really shouldn't take too long. You'll answer these questions. Your resume should already be linked as long as it's already been uploaded to your profile. And then an operations fulfillment associate will review the submission. And if you're a good fit, they'll contact you to talk more about the opportunities criteria. This is a quick call. It could last between 10 or 15 minutes, and it really consists of the associate asking about your background, specifically where it relates to the project, and double checking things like rates and your availability, your travel preferences, if that's applicable as well. It is during this conversation, you will learn the name of the company you are applying to work with. If you are in fact a good match for the project, you'll be asked to submit a proposal. And we're actually going to take a look at what that looks like right now. So I'm going to pop over to the My Applications tab. It's up here in the menu. And this is also the place where you can track your current applications and where they're at in the hiring process. So I've got one in draft waiting for us to review. Now, all proposals have 4 sections: responsibilities, experience, certification, and logistics. We're going to take a closer look at each of these, but before we do that, I want to pause here for a second. If you are being asked to submit a proposal, you are at most one of 5 people applying in that round, probably more like one of 2 or 3 people. In our opinion, this is worth emphasizing because you aren't being submitted with a pile of 40, 50, or 100 other candidates. So at this point in the hiring process, when you submit this proposal, the employers will really have the time to sit down and review you and your experience. So be sure to carve out some time to tailor your answers and really be a little thoughtful about this in the future. So responsibilities. Are you capable of fulfilling the project's listed responsibilities, each of which is outlined below with room for examples? And you'll notice that the project post is also next to the proposal for your reference. You'll then answer more pointed questions about your experience in therapeutic areas and diseases and indications and so forth. You'll want to list examples here as well. And you'll also want to talk about your professional experience, and you'll see your resume is already attached. Moving on to certifications that are necessary for the role. As you know, this can really vary depending on the type of role that's being scoped here. So this will look a little different depending on where you're applying. And then at the end, you'll go to logistics. Now, during your call with the fulfillment associate, you will likely discuss rate if you are being asked to fill out a proposal. Like the fulfillment associate is conducting a review of the project with you, that associate has done the same thing with the project you're applying for. Before this is taken live, as you'll recall, I mentioned earlier, this project's already been vetted. So that fulfillment associate will be knowledgeable on the company's rate and what other consultants are billing at. But you can also refer to your range here and what you feel you should be billing at. At the end of the day, you are the one who will set the rate. Again, this is the employer's first view of you as a potential hire. So really take a minute here to double check. You see I've not done the best job filling out examples. You'll have more information to provide here. And then you'll go ahead and you'll submit that proposal. So let's fast forward a little bit. The employer has reviewed your proposal, and we typically try and see the review period happen between 1 and 5 days. So you'll have an answer on whether or not they want to interview you relatively quickly after submitting, and we'll say that they do. So we've actually released a new interview feature, which I'm excited to be walking you through. So when you're invited to interview, you'll get an email and a notification, and you'll come here and you'll book your interview. Now you can follow the prompts pretty easily, and you'll see that the employer's already submitted some times that work on their end. So you can view all of those, and if either of these work for you, you'll just click. But if these don't work for you, you can actually tick this box down here, and the account manager and fulfillment associate that you've been working with will help you find a more suitable time. After your first interview, the employer may want to schedule a second so you can meet the rest of the team or another manager perhaps. That's not unheard of. But if they want to hire you, that same account manager will populate a statement of work for you and the employer to review and sign. So what is a statement of work? An SOW simply outlines the rules of engagement for your project. How much will you be paid? Are there any hourly minimums or maximums over the course of a month? What's the length of the engagement? And this will actually transition us perfectly into agenda item number 4, which is what to expect once you've been hired. So once both parties sign, your dedicated customer success manager will kick off your project, and you and the employer, are free to communicate as you begin working together. So you've signed the SOW, you've started working, it's all very exciting. Now it's time to invoice for your hard work. You will invoice for your time on a monthly basis through the My Timesheets portal. You can find it in your menu bar up here. If you're new to the platform, this page will be empty, so don't worry, that's normal. As soon as you match on a project, you'll be able to see what I'm seeing here. So we're going to click into this folder. We're going to create an April timesheet. So we recommend keeping track of your work on a weekly basis, but I know that if you've been consulting for a while, you probably have your own working habits. The interface, however, is pretty straightforward. You can add general notes up here, and then you'll add new lines under consulting hours to outline what you've done on a certain day. We actually have a new field here that's going to go live next week that I'll get to preview with you now. It's called the optional ID field. And you can use this to capture project codes and IDs, cost centers, or any other helpful information. It's a way to add another level of detail to your timesheets, as it's not uncommon to see consultants working on multiple projects or on multiple trials. Now, whatever you add here, your hours, your rate will automatically be calculated for you over here. So you don't even have to worry about doing any math here. There are 2 other sections here on your timesheet as well, travel hours and expenses. And in expenses, there's also a space for you to upload files. We do recommend if you're doing any traveling or building up any receipts, you take a picture of that and upload it just for record keeping. So I will stress here that in your initial discussions with the employer, you should talk about the amount of detail they expect to see in these timesheets. In terms of billing for your engagement, the timesheets is all you need to do. We take care of everything else. And I'm actually going to transition us back to our deck. And I'm going to take you guys through the invoicing timeline. So each timesheet should be submitted as soon as you finish work for a month, meaning by April 31st, I will update my timesheet and submit it, or I believe the last working day in April is the 29th. Or you have until the 2nd of the following month to submit. So once it is submitted, the employer then has 5 days to review and approve the timesheet, or in that 5-day window, the employer can request edits. And we typically see that happen where they simply need more detail about who you met with or what projects you worked on, which is why I emphasize discussing with your hiring manager the amount of detail they'd like to see on a timesheet when you begin working together. Your payment can be delayed if the hiring manager asks for more edits. Now, we do regularly remind the employer that you've submitted your timesheet for review. However, if they do not approve it within that 5-day window, a member of our finance team will, so you're not delayed any further. It's important to get your invoice into the right hands in a timely manner, and we're here to send reminders and ping as needed. Once it is approved, an invoice is immediately generated and sent to the employer's accounts payable team. They then have 30 days starting at the point of approval to the timesheet to pay the invoice. Once that invoice is paid to Clora, it's immediately turned around to you, and it takes about 2 to 3 business days for that to land in your bank account. On average, this process can take up to 45 days, but we are actively working on shrinking that down. And you can help us do that as well by A, confirming how detailed your timesheet should be, and by B, submitting it as soon as you finish work for that month. So that is the invoicing timeline. I just need you guys to stick with me. We're almost done here. Upon starting work with a new employer, you'll meet your Clora team, starting with your dedicated CSM. That could be me, it could be Josh or Marissa, and that person may change depending on the employer you're working with. But that person will always be your point of contact for any questions or concerns you might have during the engagement. Whoever your CSM will schedule regular check-ins with you to ensure you are getting value from the project. And these calls are a really great opportunity for you to review the organization you're working with. And that kind of insight is very valuable to us as we work to cultivate a meaningful platform for consultants. You'll also meet a member of our finance team, Joe or Tiffany. They'll help you get your W-9 all set up and sign up and facilitate your sign up to bill.com, which you can use to track your payment as well. And then some other faces I want to quickly introduce you to: Jordan and Meredith, our account managers, and Amy and Adarsh, our operations fulfillment associates. Those groups of people will help shepherd you through the hiring process. Okay, the last thing I'm going to leave you with is a preview of a few projects available through Quora currently. We are looking for a senior CTM. That's a 3 to 4 month commitment with about 20 to 25 hours a week. We're looking for a clinical project manager. It's about 9 to 10 months. That's 35 to 40 hours a week. We're also looking for a medical director. That's 7 to 8 months, working about 5 to 10 hours a week. We're also looking for a subcutaneous device development lead. That is a 3 to 4 month commitment at about 15 to 20 hours a week. So this is a really good example of one of those fast facts I started you guys off with, calendar flexibility. We've got a range of availability here. So really what fits with your calendar here, that's one of the things I'm trying to highlight. So that brings us to the end of our agenda and this webinar. I want to thank you very much for your attention. I know I've given you a lot to chew over. And everyone, please don't forget, we're just a click away. You can make use of that live chat feature, or you can reach out to us at support@quora.com. So we're actually going to send you a copy of this recording and a physical guide for you to reference as well. You'll also receive a survey about this webinar. We've changed the format a little bit. We've added a few things here and there. Please don't hold back. Let us know what you liked. Let us know what worked. Let us know what didn't. Let us know if we missed anything. We're really here to make sure that this half hour that we take from you guys is as valuable as it can be. So with that, Libby's back on with us, and we're going to dive through some Q&A. And I know we're close to the half hour mark, but Libby and I are going to stay on to try and get through as many of these as possible.
Excellent. And thank you all so much. There's so many great questions coming in the Q&A or in chat today. So we'll be getting started. And as Emily said, we'll stay on to answer as many of these questions as we can. But we do understand that you may have to drop off. So just to reiterate, you will get a copy of the recording after this. We may even include a short list of FAQs that we heard that we thought might be useful to answer in writing also afterwards. So with that in mind, let's get started. We have a couple great questions. And Emily, this is actually one of our favorites. How often does scope creep occur within projects, and how is it handled? What is Quora's role? So I'll hand that one to you, Emily.
Sure. So scope creep is something that we see with biotech companies. So one of the ways that we address scope creep is actually within that SOW I mentioned to you earlier, that statement of work between you and the employer. In that statement of work, we'll outline your hourly rate, your minimums, maximums, length of the engagement. We'll also talk about the scope of your work. So a lot of times there can be a little bit of fluctuation on your responsibilities, but when we see major changes, we can actually step in and do an amendment to the scope of work. And that's a conversation that me or the other CSM on the account and that account manager will have with you, and then we'll have with the employer. So that's kind of a good example of how we play middleman here and just really have, help you facilitate meaningful conversations and meaningful engagements with the employers. But Libby, please let me know if I missed anything.
No, I think you phrased that very well, Emily, and I think it's a great question. Another one, I saw a couple different versions of this question come in, and I'm actually happy to take this one. A couple people asked, is there a list of employers or companies that we've worked with in the past? Just to give you an idea of a range of companies that are offering these roles. And in short, absolutely. Our customer success managers have built a great relationship both with our consultants and also with our employers. So we have a number of employers who provided essentially testimonials about what it's been like working with us. Those include C4, Pioneering Medicines, Rhythm, Ribomic, Evelo, Atai Life Sciences, Spiro, Galera, Faxus. That's just a few, to name a few. There are a lot more companies that we work with, but I hope that's a helpful indicator of the different types of companies, the different biotech spaces that we're covering. So, Emily, I have another question for you. Is there a non-compete provision or expectation? And if so, how is it worded? How is it handled?
So in terms of non-compete, when you're looking to apply to a new job, we have that conversation with you during your call with the fulfillment associate to sort of talk about your experience and where the both of you will agree if you're a good applicant or not. You learn about the name of the company there so that we can address any non-competes that you might already have in place from working with other companies. And there's also a section in the proposal where we address non-competes as well. In terms of language around in the statement of work, I'd actually bump that back to you, Libby, to explain if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. So in terms of the actual language in the statement of work, it's pretty clearly worded. But what I will say is I am not an attorney, but we have a really great finance team on our end that will make sure to work with you. And we also, of course, have some legal teams internally. So when you're looking at non-compete language, if you have any questions, we're happy to help address them, and we can absolutely help you answer the question of whether you should have any concerns there. What I will say is we have many consultants who work successfully with the companies that are offering these roles. So generally, it doesn't tend to be an issue, but it is something that during the interview process, we can definitely discuss. Okay. Another question we got, Emily, was, will payments come from the client, or does Clora function essentially as the pass-through? And I will hand that one to you.
Yeah, so we do function as the pass-through. So part of, your access through Clora is working through Clora, or your access to the projects available on Clora is actually working through us as kind of this middleman. So the employers will actually bill out to us, and then as soon as we receive notice of payment, we will disseminate those funds to you. Again, it takes about 2 to 3 days to land in your bank account. I would err closer to 2 days, but as soon as we have that confirmation as well, you will also get that confirmation. It's one of the reasons we also sign you up to Bill.com, which is also a free platform, especially if you're working through Clora. And you'll be able to track your payment there as well. But Libby, please feel free to add anything.
I think that was great. Another question that I saw come in was, does Clora provide tax documents for tax filing? I'm sure taxes are on the mind of everyone on this call today, since we've got the tax deadline coming up for 2021 in just a few days. So in short, yes, Clora does provide tax documents. So we can provide a 1099 to each consultant, and those go out. There can be a physical version, but we also send them out electronically in January of every year. So we absolutely help there. And if at any point you have questions about your tax forms, we have that great finance team that Emily mentioned there to assist as well.
And I think it might also be worth highlighting here that spam can sometimes be our enemy, especially when we're sending attachments. So when you do start working with us and it comes time for, your 1099s to go out, please, if you're not seeing it, check your spam. We're happy to send you another copy. But most of the times that's where it can end up, just because it's got an attachment. I just think that's worth highlighting.
Absolutely. Emily, another question we have here is, are the majority of your assignments clinical, or are there other types of roles available on the platform? And I will say there are a couple of people who asked different versions of this.
Sure. So the types of jobs that we offer through Clora really tend to ebb and flow. So if you think way back to the beginning of this webinar, when I asked you guys to keep in mind our mission statement, which is getting you to work as quickly as possible so we can bring value to patients as quickly as possible. We tend not to have jobs that sit around long on our platform because of that mission, which is, again, getting you to work quickly. So it can be hard to see what's really lingering because not much does linger. So again, we ebb and flow a lot with the types of jobs that are available through the Clora platform. Just because you're not seeing something that's applicable to you immediately doesn't mean that in a couple weeks or a month or two, something else won't crop up. We talk about Clora running alongside your existing book of business, and I want to re-highlight sort of that availability section of your profile. As long as you've got that up to date, we'll keep you in the loop about any jobs that fit you and your skill set. Is a long-winded answer.
Awesome. I've also seen a few questions come in regarding essentially, how do you get paid? Which we completely understand. That's very important. So Emily mentioned that we use Bill.com to facilitate the process of getting that payment to you. So you'll get signed up there, you'll input your information. And in short, I saw a couple different versions of this question. You will get paid via direct deposit into your bank account using Bill.com. So we can answer more detailed questions if you have them, but in short, yes, you will get a direct deposit when we process that. That payment will come from Clora, so it will appear like that in Bill.com. So essentially, as Emily walked through that payment process, we'll facilitate getting the timesheet over to the employer, making sure it gets paid, and then getting those funds back to you. So we facilitate that process, try to take that pressure off you so that you don't have to be chasing that. Another question. Let's see that we've got so many great ones coming in, so apologies that I'm taking a little longer. One of the questions we had was, do you hire consultants based at remote locations outside the US? And Emily, I'll hand that one to you because I know you've got some direct experience with this.
Yes. So I think in the world of remote work, the short answer is yes, we do. For a little bit of a more detail, what I can tell you is I'm currently working with a consultant who's working with an employer that's based in the East Coast of the United States. He likes to spend his winters in Thailand, which is the best practice we all could probably use a little bit more of in our lives. And so for the first 3 or 4 months, he was in a completely different time zone, but they have a really great working relationship and they've been effective and producing really great results since the beginning of that engagement. He has since gone back to Europe, so that time change has shrunk a little bit. It's not as painful, but they're still successfully working together. I was also working with a consultant who is based in Australia, who's a day ahead of the company that she was working with on the East Coast as well. So we do hire people, or we do see people hired who are in different geographical locations. I'm also working with a consultant who's a Greece-based clinician. And it's also not uncommon, I'll also say, to see the bigger biotech companies have sites in different parts of the world. So sometimes, we see employers coming through who are asking for people located in different locations of the world. And a lot of times we have some people here working in the States, managing sites that are in Europe or in Australia. In that same breath, I would also just caution you that there are some projects where it's very specific. A company in the West Coast needs someone in the West Coast. And that's where we see a little bit more of, travel time into the office, maybe a site visit once a month, or especially when we talk about auditing. For the most part, there's a lot of flexibility. So as long as you're able to, go to those meetings, do site visits as needed, or work around weird hours, the floor is open.
Excellent. And I'll add that when you look at the project post, right below the title of the project itself, that's where you'll be able to see whether it's a fully remote role or there is any travel required. So we make sure that's very clear and easy to find and then mentioned throughout the process. We did have an anonymous question submitted that asking, is there a standardized contract with clients and does it include an indemnification clause? So in short, yes, we have templates that are a standardized contract, a standardized statement of work. Of course, we will help update those and make sure that those address the specific scope of work that you are agreeing to and the specific rate you're going to be paid, any minimum or maximum hourly rates, and so on. And yes, there is an indemnification clause in that. So we are always happy to answer more detailed questions when it comes to contracting. We understand that's a complex part of the process. But in short, yes, we're here to help, and we have designed standardized contracts here to help protect our consultants and make sure you feel comfortable. Okay. And then let's see. Got a great question about how you bill for travel and lodging, approved office expenses. Emily, do you want to touch on that?
Sure. So like I mentioned earlier on timesheets, there are 3 sections: consulting hours, which you'll put the bulk of your hours worked in a month under. And then there's travel hours, and then there's expenses. So for example, if you buy a plane ticket, you'll upload the plane ticket under expenses. You'll log the hours on the plane under travel hours. And then again, we want to make sure, and I'm sure you already know this, but keep a hold of your receipts, take pictures, and upload those pictures onto timesheets at the end of the month. And then of course, for the most part, what I will also say is when we talk about traveling with a certain project, what we'll see is typically a clause that states that it's really up to you and the employer to agree upon sort of the expenses and the travel when that time does come around, if it comes around in a project. So that'll mostly be handled between the both of you. And then you'll just upload that on the back end on timesheets, again, expenses and travel hours. So there is room for you to get a little more detail, a little more granular on your timesheets as well.
Excellent. We have another question about what do clients expect regarding their onboarding? So when you've joined, you've matched to a project and you're onboarding with them. Are there background checks? Are there pre-employment screenings and so on? Emily, do you want to kick us off? And then I'm happy to add into that.
Sure. Yeah, we can tag team. So we do a little bit of scoping beforehand. And then when you guys do kick off your project, we actually sit down with you, both the employer and with you. And we talk about the minimums and maximums that were outlined in your clause, in your statement of work and other points. And then we also go through some best practices just in terms of engagement. In terms of background checks, I'm actually gonna have to kick that one over to you, Libby.
Yes, absolutely. In short, there may be occasionally a requirement around a background check or some sort of pre-employment screening. However, we will know that going in and can assist you with that. So what I would say is, I don't think that's a common occurrence. I haven't seen it on a regular basis with the companies and the projects we see listed through Clora. But if it does come up, that's something that, again, we can help address, help make sure it is part of the process to make it as efficient as possible if you match with that particular project. I have another question. I think it's a really good one. Essentially, how often should I be checking the Clora website? And how often should I rely on Clora to contact me when there is a potential project fit? I think that's a very good question, especially because you're thinking about, how do I spend my time best when it comes to working as a consultant? So for Clora, one of the key components that we really emphasize is making sure that those functional areas and those tags that are on your profile are up to date. And the reason we put so much emphasis on that is that we will use our technology, our software, our platform behind the scenes to locate you. So we will reach out to you. And as long as the functional areas and the other tags that you have match the types of roles that we have on our platform, we'll be reaching out to you directly. But in addition, we never want to take it away as an option for you to be able to monitor the platform, look at a project. Especially occasionally we see consultants who want to build upon their expertise and expand into a new type of role. And so you might see a project come up that's a little bit outside or a little bit right next door to what you've already done. And then you're building upon and you're applying for that project. So we might not naturally reach out to you about it, but if you think you have the expertise and can build the skills to complete it, that's where we kind of see that additional piece come in. So for the consultant who specifically asked that, I would say I would check Clora probably every 1 to 2 weeks just to keep an eye out. It's really quick to just browse through the opportunities. But I would also, of course, just monitor your email and look for those kind of those emails and those outreaches from us. Let's see. And then we've got, I will say there's a lot of other questions or a fair number of questions coming in that are very specific to the consultant themselves. So something very specific to their expertise or their background. We will make sure to follow up with you on any questions that we don't discuss live here in the Q&A today. So if you're asking me a question that's really specific to your expertise, we'll make sure to follow up with you directly so that we can really tailor our response to that. And then I think there's another question, or kind of actually even a comment here in the Q&A about having sufficient time to really learn about a company's mission, their objective relative to the project, about their products portfolio, any issues, the people one will be dealing with, the communication preferences, the frequency during onboarding. I think these are all really important aspects of onboarding with a company, and they're absolutely something that we try to address and incorporate into the onboarding process for a project. So we definitely, at Clora, we think that the personality match, the culture fit is really important when it comes to working with a company. So that's something we definitely monitor for and try to screen for in the interviewing process. And then once you're actually onboarding, again, the customer success manager will work with you to make sure that you get answers to a lot of these questions, that you really have a very successful, efficient experience getting started, getting kicked off, and that you and that employer can then work really successfully together. So in short, we think those things are really important too, and we do work to make sure that we address them throughout the process. Okay, I think even more questions have come in chat. So just take a look. Okay, I think we're reaching near the end, or there are some that, again, are specific to an individual consultant, and I will follow up with you directly on that. Let's see. Emily, one question that came up was about availability, and I know that you talked about being able to mark that in your profile. And so one of the consultants asked, if I specifically mark myself as not currently available, does that take me off the list essentially? And I'm wondering if you want to tackle that one, or I'm happy to jump in.
So it doesn't explicitly remove you from the list. What it does mean is that we would not be first, you wouldn't be at the top of the list to be reached out to as you are unavailable. But that's also really something that you can clarify with us as well, because if you are unavailable and would like to still hear about anything that might be floating across your desk, anything that might be of interest to you, you can just mark yourself as available and keep yourself on low hours is what my suggestion would be. And I think for the most part, we typically would include you in those invitations to apply as well, because we know that hopping onto the Clora platform, when we talk about the balance between visiting the Clora platform and us reaching out to you, we really want you to get in the habit of keeping your availability as up to date as possible. But you are also, of course, at liberty to say, oh, that's really interesting. I think I can fit it into my calendar. You're also at liberty to say, that's really interesting, but I just can't take on any more projects right now. So short answer, no, you will not be excluded. You'll still be invited to apply and review, but really try and focus on keeping that availability up to date. And you know your calendar better than we do as well. But Libby, please go ahead and add anything I might have missed.
No, I think that puts it really well, Emily. We are going to wrap up shortly, but I have a few questions that have come up that I think I do want to make sure we address, for those of us who are still on the line. So a couple of people asked about the consultant rating. What appears on your profile? How is it populated? And how do we handle this for freshly onboarding consultants with no prior rating as yet? This is such a great question. So in short, when you are first getting signed up and when we're discussing with you or first meeting with you, for example, internally here at Clora, we actually do make sure to talk with you and vet for your expertise, your verbal and written communication skills. So internally, you not having a rating from an external source or necessarily someone vouching for you yet does not hurt you. We will still reach out to you. We will still want to connect with you and talk with you. And then, of course, once you have matched to a project, we do work really hard to make sure we're gathering that feedback both throughout the project and then at the end so that you get those reviews. I will add, someone asked, can Clora elicit ratings from a third-party reference to populate this field? I don't think we can do that right now, but I love that idea. I think it's a really great product suggestion. And our product and engineering team is so good about responding to these types of suggestions. So I will definitely pass that along. Then I think the last one to end on is, I think, a really great question. How can I get an assessment of how well my background, my capabilities fit with Clora jobs in general? How do I know that I'm going to connect with the right projects, that I'm going to be a good fit? You attending this is definitely the first step. But the second piece, and this is a question Emily and I and our other customer success managers have absolutely answered in the past, is just to reach out to us. So you can drop a quick note to support@clora.com, or you can actually jump into the chat on clora.com and reach out to us and say, can you take a look at my profile and tell me what you think? We do this on a regular basis. We will tell you if we think there are tags missing that you should add, if you should fill out other parts of your profile in more detail. And we will also happily tell you if we think you're a good fit, if you are likely to match with a number of roles, either now or in the future, because as Emily mentioned, we do go through roles quite quickly. We're constantly adding new ones. We're constantly matching ones. So Clora updates on a regular basis. But in short, we are here to help. So don't hesitate to reach out via the chat, via support@clora.com, and so on. There's so many great questions here, and we will be following up again with anyone that wrote something in and we didn't get a chance to answer today. And I just want to thank everyone for joining today, taking the time to meet with us, and also taking the time to be a part of the Clara platform, because we're really excited to work with you and really value your time. So Emily, I'll hand it over to you to wrap us up.
Thank you, Libby. This has been a really great Q&A, and I'm looking forward to webinars in the future with more interest like this. So thank you very much for paying attention and for your time. I'll just wrap up really quickly. We're going to send you the recording. We're going to send you the guide as a reference point. We're also going to send you that survey I mentioned earlier. Please don't hold back. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you'd like to see more of. This is really an opportunity for us to help consultants. And we do work with consultants as much as we work with employers. It's a very two-sided marketplace. So if you're not getting value, we want to know about it. So thank you very much for your attention. And we will be following up shortly with an email with a lot of more information from you. Please don't be shy. If you have questions, you can just respond directly to that email. Use the chat right into support@clara.com, like Libby said. We're looking forward to working with you, and thank you very much for your time. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.